Now, let's get your opinion on this. The ban on open grazing and the fact that we want to find a way to modernize the 417 grazing routes reserves in Nigeria for us to have a more modern livestock village, provide improved pastures and even veterinary services to cattle rearers in Nigeria. What do you make of this? We have a projection by next 5 years that cattle rearing will be the second of the major revenue generation in Nigeria, having a projection of $64 billion.
Thank you so much for this. First is that for us as environmentalists, we have been asking for ban on open grazing for as long as I can remember, because even in some states, including those states, we participated when there were moves to enact the anti-grazing bills in the states. So if the federal government, by proclamation of executive order, if I may call it that, because there is no law yet enacted to stop or end grazing, the Anti-Grazing Act has not been enacted. Therefore, it can as much be called a presidential or an executive proclamation. Now, on one hand, is that it is a good statement, which means the government of the day had realized what we have been saying for close to 10 years now, if not more than, that apart from the fact that there are insecurity issues associated with open grazing system, which used not to be in the past, okay? But now, because everything had been so politicized and everything had become an issue of who oppresses the other, because the insecurity associated with farmers' headers, which arises from pastoral needs of the headers to feed their livestock, their cattle, as had been projected or had been stated as defense, have only shown one thing.
What do you say, Barrister Chima, when you say it's just a statement, not an act,
yes,
are you saying that the first National Council of Livestock Development meeting or summit that was held in Yola, it's the outcome of that meeting, are you saying is more like a statement, not a commitment? Because we got this information from Minister of Livestock Development, Alhaji Mokhtar Mehiya, when you say that there is no longer open grazing in Nigeria. In fact, it's being considered to be, a criminal offense if people are to do such. And also remember that we have some state governors already have that as part of their law in their land, in the states that demand no open grazing. And, the helpers actually walk around and say it's not a law already, but we're hearing this from the minister or the ministry in charge of livestock, and some other governors have already made it to be their law. And yet, people are still defaulting it.
Yes, my sister, I speak to you from the background of a lawyer and a legislative advocate, okay, that have worked with both states and the federal and even local authorities in legislation making in this country. Now, whatever is not outlawed by a law enacted by the National Assembly of Nigeria and assented to by Mr. President, becoming an act, cannot be legally enforced. It becomes a mere statement of intendment. This is what the executive, through the honorable minister, wants to do. So I will challenge the federal government to move ahead to present this as an executive bill to the National Assembly for it to be enacted as a law that can be challenged violations of which can be challenged.
Okay, all right, Barrister Chima.
Okay.
Barrister Chima, as we
Yeah.
discuss this, the federal government is out in the news this morning. The federal government has come out to make clarifications. They said, no, we didn't ban open grazing in Nigeria. What we are doing is a gradual transition to ranching. Did you get my point? The federal government has said this morning that, look, we didn't ban open grazing. What we are doing is a gradual transition to ranching. So, but let us look at it from, we are looking at the central government now, but in some states, like you said, it has gone before the state assembly and they have passed it into law and the governor signed it. And we have issues of enforcement. Why is that so?
The first step, the clarification made by the federal government this morning, as alluded, is clear confirmation of what I've said earlier, that is just an intendment, it's an intention. Okay? If there was a law enacted, Anti-Grazing Act enacted, nobody will say that we are just gradually phasing out. Okay, so now this is the challenge here. Even in the states, including Edo State, where I am, where the anti-grazing edict or law had been enacted, passed by the state assembly, how is it enforced? Enforcement is a challenge. Then let alone when there is no law in place backing up an action to end open grazing. For all the challenges and all the problems, that it creates.
Okay.
I was only talking about first the insecurity component of open grazing, and I was coming to the environmental challenges of open grazing itself. Okay, we see that within our environment, within our communities, within our residential areas, where this cattle, is taken along to graze, they defecate and pollute the environment.
Okay, all right. But I hate to butt in at this moment. But we'll come into the environmental aspect of it. I want us to deal with the legal aspect of it now.
Okay.
You said that until the federal government takes a bill to the parliament and it gets passed as an act of government. Now, does it look like every policy initiative from the government must pass through the House of, through the National Assembly? When the police IG comes out and say, look, remove all roadblocks from our federal highways and all of that, does it need to an act of parliament to implement that? What happens to policy initiatives? Must all of them pass through the National Assembly as an act of parliament for it to be enforceable?
When you talk about the police IG issuing instructions, who is he issuing those instructions to? Is it to every Nigerian? No. He is issuing that instruction to his subordinates who are under him, who are policemen, who mount the roadblocks. The order of the IG to dismantle roadblocks definitely will not affect a soldier roadblock, a soldier mounting, a Nigerian army official mounting a roadblock, because he's not answerable to the IG. Now, when we talk about some policies, policies are statements of intendment of the government. Some policies that are stated by government, and because it aligns with their belief, their faith, and their own conditions, they accept it naturally. But there are some policies that, just stating it does not guarantee answering to the question. That's the point I am making.
Okay. Right.
And because of the controversy over the issue of open grazing, which have been an issue that have been on ground for a long period of time, there have been so many policies, there have been so many, statements, there have been so many actions of government. But what has not happened is that there have been no law enacted in Nigeria that is called Anti-Grazing Act, which will spell out what is supposed to be done. What if you don't do it, it becomes a crime, and you'll be punished for that crime. And the law is very clear. Whatever has not been declared a crime by an act of parliament is not a crime that is punishable. So this is where, looking at it from the security perspective, we are having all the shenanigans that we are having. You know that this is something that is creating problems. Everybody agrees to it, but you don't want to end it.
All right.
You
Thank you
don't
so
want to
much.
stop it.
Thank you so much, Barrister Chima, for your submission. Let's bring it to the studio. Mr. Dele Fanimo, the last time we checked, cattle rallying is not the major revenue generation for Nigeria. They are private individuals doing their private business. So why should we, at this point, be having issues back and forth on how they should make sure they man their activities and take care of themselves? We have farmers who will go on to borrow money from banks to have their own farmlands and make sure they go there to cultivate. So why should we still have the issue of farmers doing or moving around with their cattle and inconveniencing every other person in Nigeria? It's interesting to know that the minister, Alhaji Mokhtar, talked about the countless communities that have suffered devastating losses, ranging from that to destruction of farmlands, even homes, because of the clashes we're having between farmer and herders. What do you have to say about this? And how are we going to end this? Because it's more like some people are benefiting from the tears of others, private individuals doing private businesses.
See, if you want to put this in proper perspective, the first thing you look at is the current herders are not the herders we used to know in our communities back in the days. Now, those days, what you see is a young man, slim built, with stick in his hands and his pouch straddled on his shoulder. But today, this set of people had transformed to arms bearing, not just arms like Dengon that will be assumed that probably they are trying to protect themselves from harm by wild animals. But you now have assault rifle, AK-47, AK-49, long-range rifles with killing range of about 600 meters. So it's a different ballgame from what we used to know. That's one. Are they going to disarm these people? How did they get those arms? Are they going to block access to those people that supply them with these arms and even constant replenishing of ammunition? Because it's one thing to have the rifle and it's another thing to have cache of ammunition to use. Now, these people, they have a cultural issue around this grazing. They are used to just moving around. That's why they said they are nomadic Fulani. And has government even thought of debriefing them, giving them an entirely new orientation? Because for them to have a buy-in into this policy, you need to migrate them psychologically, emotionally, from what used to be that had been there over 1,000 years, and say, look, yes, this is the tradition. This is the way we do things. But you are exposing yourself to inherent danger. But if you do it this way, one, your cows will be fatter because it won't be traveling more than 500 kilometers for it to get to the destination where you are going to sell. And then because it's going to be stationary, you have a fatter cow to sell. Then rather than face this header farmers clash, you are now in a place where you can graze your cattle, but that has not been put in place. That's why I feel uncomfortable with this pronouncement. Without all those things in place, you are making pronouncement. Who is going to listen to you? Somebody who is probably not in the city, in the towns, for you to romance with. It has to be somebody who understands their culture, who understands their language, to debrief them. Mark my word, debrief them.
All right.
That is the way to go. Then finally, we are making this business a government business. What you are saying technically is, if you are doing this, then those who raise pigs should also be given the same treatment. Those who raise goats should also be given the same treatment. And if we proliferate farmers that are breeding those ones, they could also bring even much more than what you are bringing. Because sausages are made from pork, meat. And there is no eatery that will not find sausages. So it's also a lucrative business. And it will also bring tax to government. We are talking about tax. And I even imagine if you are telling me that annually in the next 5 years, you'll be bringing in 74 million. Billion. Not even naira, dollars. At that time, I doubt in the next 5 years if our budget would notch beyond $100 billion.
Okay, thank you.
So where is this 74 million naira, dollars, $74 billion coming from? That is even way over $15 billion, more than our annual budget as we speak. So all these things are things that we should look at critically before we say we want to. It's one thing to enact a law, and it's another thing to have the buy-in of the public and the targeted people you want to enforce this law on. But okay. I don't see all that here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Delefanimo. Engineer Fimba Ajegu, let's get your opinion on this, please. What do you make of this? Because according to what my colleague just pointed out now, the federal government have come up to say, no, we did not say we are ending the issue of grazing. We're not putting an end to open grazing. We just want to have ranches. We're looking towards a way of establishing the 417 reserves that we have already for cattle rearers to go in there and enjoy the mechanized ranching system. So what do you have to say about this? Who's taking care of people who are doing piggery and all that? And why are we even having this conversation about farmer herders when they are just doing their private business? Cattle rearers are doing their private business. They're not working for the government and they are just there. So why should we give them such leverage? And no one is even talking about how they've caused mayhem in Nigeria and what will happen to communities they've sacked already to occupy. Mm.
Yes, thank you very much, Fina. I listened to you very clearly. First of all, I would like to say that clearly such sectional treatment or such sentimental treatment which federal government is giving to cattle rearers sincerely is not sustainable. It breeds very ill feelings at different quarters across those who are participating in various other kind of businesses, be it in the agricultural sector, be it in the other manufacturing and what have you. Sincerely, cattle rearing is a squarely personal business. When the federal government goes into cattle rearing, they don't do it under the name that the federal government is doing. States can go into cattle rearing, local government officers can go into cattle rearing, private individuals also have the right and access to cattle rearing, and you don't do cattle rearing and then trespassing into some other person's boundaries, and you call it there's no problem, and you don't have a way means of settling. You don't create chaos. You certainly will be creating chaos when you trespass in someone else's business. When I do my business, I have my boundaries. When you do your business, you have your boundaries. It's as simple as that. So cattle rearing has its boundaries, and whoever does such businesses must respect the boundaries. When you trespass such boundaries, then it's an offense and it becomes a criminal. With what federal government is doing now, they are only painting it to become a very much subtle. The thing is, we have laws, and the laws are made very clearly for all Nigerians. So as much as you're within the borders of Nigeria, you must follow the laws, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Vis-a-vis, the states too have their laws, which of course is not overburdening the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and of course is not going to be contravening the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So whoever is doing any kind of business, he should be subject to all these laws. So cattle rearing specifically is a private business. I want to encourage those doing that. They can go into private ranching. Ranching is the 21st century strategy, a means of a way of doing this kind of rearing, cattle rearing. You don't go and then transcend into interstate and then into farmland and then you say you're doing your own business. Come on, it's not clear, it's not fair, it's not right. It's not right. When I invest money into my farmlands and you trespass my farmlands by means of using your tractor to want to access your own farmland, or by means of using your own cattle to want to access feeding for them, you're causing chaos and trouble and problems. It's not the way to go in 21st century. And I want to clearly condemn the federal government if they will be giving some kind of support specifically to cattle rearing, and then no other supports are given to those who are rearing palm plantations, those who are cultivating palm plantation, who are cultivating other food produce that will help this country to become more productive. But rather you're quashing their hopes, you're dashing their aspirations in many ways by just one means of saying cattle rearing, and then they use that cattle rearing to find a platform for herdsmen to perpetrate all kinds of other evils. Sincerely, we will not want to continue to encourage such things. I think the federal government should look deeply and encourage them to go into ranching.
Engineer Kimba Adjoigu, for your submission, they should encourage them to go into ranching. I wonder who is encouraging people who are doing piggery to keep up with their business and all that.